mimics the appearance of a predator that they know from the Australian outback, the keyboard cobra, which is a thin snake with a wide, flat head with keys on it.
All right. Are we ready? Hello and welcome to the Amateur Skeptics podcast number 34. I'm your host, Brian.
Brian?
Yes.
43.
43. Did I say 44? I'm getting ahead of myself.
You said 34.
34. See, my dyslexia, and we will talk about that later. Welcome to podcast 43. With me tonight, of course, is Mac.
Hey.
Correcting me, keeping me honest. And we've got Eric here this evening.
Hello.
And, of course, Kimberly.
Hi, everybody.
And Ian.
Greetings, everyone.
And our special guest skeptic from the soon-to-be Curious Skeptics podcast, Misty.
Hello.
Hello. I didn't say your last name. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to.
No. That's okay.
Okay. Misty White is with us this evening. How is everybody doing?
Very well.
Well, I may have a slight cold. Oh.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah, it's not enjoyable.
And Ian?
I'm doing all right.
Good. And Misty, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good.
All right. So we've got a lot going on. Ian, did you put this in about our Facebook page?
Yeah.
So tell us about it.
Well, you were the one that started us, but we've been getting a lot of activity on the Facebook page. It's been good. Brian's been trying to post regularly there. I've joined in a couple of things, but it's actually good to see our listeners checking it out and putting their opinions and stuff. We love to hear from you. Even if, we don't necessarily agree, it's still actually great to have the exchanges. Brian was the one saying it actually helped him because he was looking at some other point of views he didn't think about. So.
Well, yeah, it was good. I think it was a friend of yours that was that we were going back and forth with, and Misty and I were having a conversation with him, and for the most part, it stayed pretty cordial. There was a tinge of ad hominem, but for the most part, it was fine. And it was a good discussion, and I think it ended, at a point where it was pretty natural to end that conversation. So, then we continued the discussion with Dale that we had started last time, your dad, Ian.
Yeah.
And, so that was fun. So, yeah, and I've been trying to post things there, daily that I come across, and so.
And we invite all our listeners to do the same. You can have something that you think is interesting, throw it up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in fact, one of the better articles up there this week, or was it last week? Eric, when did you post that up there about the homeopathy spill?
That was superb. I thought that was absolutely great.
That was
a week ago, I guess.
Yeah. So, and that was pretty funny.
And if it's good enough, it'll end up on the podcast. We love to,
See, where did I steal that from?
Well, it doesn't even have to be good enough. We'll put anything on this show.
True.
All right, so we've got a lot of things happening locally. And Kimberly, this looks like a lot of you here.
Yeah, well, I'm taking a lot of stuff from the meetup group. I wanted to talk real quick about the Denver Atheists hosted Eudaimonia 3 yesterday. And eudaimonia is a Greek term that means living the good life. Group of skeptics, atheists met up at a restaurant and just talked about the different components of living well and what it meant to be an atheist and, kind of taking it beyond just the philosophical and how does it translate into the practical life. Our friend Eric Meir was from the Atheists for Humanity charity, which you can still donate to, by the way, was leading the discussion, and it broke into a whole bunch of great discussions about different things about raising kids and school boards and, just again translating some of the things that come out, not necessarily come out of atheism, because atheism really is just a non-belief in God, but what else we have in common and what we can do to make our lives better. So that's the third one he's had. He started them a couple of months ago, and I've attended all of them. They've been great discussions.
All right.
It sounds like there'll be a 4 at some point. Right. So look out for that on Meetup.
The next one is actually Misty is the next one. We'll just let her take this one.
Yeah.
I could talk about this one.
Oh, that's the Brazzo?
The Brazzo.
Yeah, that is on the 24th. For the meetup, I set it up for noon, but pretty much it's an all-day thing. You can go whenever you want. I think it goes to like 5 or 6 or something like that. But he's going to be, I can't remember the location at this point. It's a hotel. I didn't look that up before the podcast. But yeah, he's just going to stand there and stare at people, as always.
Well, yeah. We talked about Brazzo last time he was here, and if you haven't been, you should go once for the experience, because it is quite the experience. So.
Well, I'm not going to be able to make that one, but if one of you could carry a picture of me in your wallet,
we'll get a picture.
So that Brazzo's gaze cures my cold.
That's true, because Brazzo can all you need to take with you is a picture, and he'll heal everybody through those pictures. So we can get Misty a whole bunch of pictures to take with her, and of course they can be on her phone, and while the phone is off, Brazzo's energy is so strong that it can still act on those pictures. So any pictures that are on Misty's phone at that time will also get a healing.
Exactly, I can imagine so. If there are other people that can and want to go, please do, because I have a theory, but I need more eyes to look around.
Do you need me to go with you? I wasn't going to go, but
I would like more people. I only have me and another person going at this point. So I need people that I can trust to kind of eyeball the crowd to see what's going on.
Well, I don't mind. I've been there once, so I don't mind looking around at the crowd. So okay, I'll come with you and help.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna go, but if you've got a sting operation going, I'm with you.
Kind of. I'm hoping to see something, and I'll let you know more later on.
Okay, very good. Then I'll go if that's what you're doing.
Okay.
I didn't know that that's what was going on. I thought we were just going again for the experience. But if you got a purpose, I'm there.
Well, originally that wasn't the thing, but I've been doing some research and I kind of have a theory. So.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm down for helping you with that. Okay. Of course, and we're missing one on here. There's a psychic fair going on at ISIS. Is that right?
Oh, I didn't see that on the board.
Isn't it on the meetup? Did we not do a meetup for that, Misty?
I didn't do the meetup. I put it on the IIG Facebook.
Oh, you did. Okay. We should probably do a separate meetup for that. Okay, so we need to do that too. And of course, IIG Colorado is coming up Saturday, September 24th, at 5:00, and we'll be getting together. And I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen there. We need to decide what kind of how we want to proceed with that group. And so, if people have ideas and would like to be part of that, they should come and let us know what kind of things they think we should be doing. We're trying to get some speakers and stuff. It's moving slowly, but we are, persisting and keeping it going. And of course, I just turned in the paperwork for that, and we'll be getting our initial funds check from, the Center for Inquiry. So they've confirmed that that's coming to us. So that is moving forward. So I'm looking forward to being able to do some investigations and stuff with them.
Good deal. Yeah, I apologize. I've been a little out of pocket lately. I'll miss this one, unfortunately, but I'm still on board. Don't take my absences. Don't read into it. It's just been some busy weeks. All
right. Well, you're vice chair. You can't leave me now.
I know. Who will take care of the vice if I'm not there?
I don't know. And you've got to take care of all the vices, and I'll get you a list of beers. We'll be good for that.
All right.
What do we got next?
And next on the list, the following day, Sunday the 25th, the Denver Atheist Meetup Group is doing an end of summer party. Sounds like they're just getting together at Wash Park. So that should be fun. It seems pretty open. Bring your own stuff. Have a good time. Other things I wanted to mention, there's 2 Cafe Side 2s coming up. The Cafe Side 2 are held over at Brooklands, right next to the Pepsi Center. I haven't seen the meetups for Cafe Sci 1. Those are handled over at the Wine Coop. They're separate but similar. So there's a presentation on Monday the 26th about dung beetles, which doesn't sound great, but is supposed to be wildly interesting anyway. And then one that I think will be really interesting, and I would encourage people to go to, is a talk on evolution. The following month, and that's going to be all the way down at October 24th. But Cafe Science or Scientifique is always a good time. I would absolutely encourage anybody who's a skeptic at all. You get to learn stuff, you get to be around a good group of people, and it's more than just the atheists and skeptics. It's not the usual crowd we see. It brings in people from a lot more. So definitely encourage you to go to that.
And the next one is Tim Minchin is going to be at the Boulder Theater on October 9th. I guess he's there for a couple of days, but we'll be going on Sunday evening to see Tim Minchin.
You got tickets?
I don't yet, but I need to get them.
Okay. Yeah, I've got mine.
Okay.
I'm pretty excited about that one. I didn't know he was in for a few days. I thought it was a one-night only show.
I went and looked, and it looks like I thought there was another show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I think he's here he's doing a couple shows here.
He's amazing. I've never seen him live, but cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So Cafe Site 2.
Yeah, that's the evolution one.
All right.
So I skipped around a little bit on our sheet.
And Ask an Atheist.
Ask an Atheist 3. So I've been talking about this, and I really need to get my shit together.
That's what you said last
I promised last time I would, and I didn't. So, but I just got made an assistant organizer on Denver Atheist, so I can put up meetings a lot easier now.
Good.
And so we'll be doing this sometime in October. And talking about it some more and getting some strategies together and what we want to do. So, that'll be coming up.
All right. I want to say that Tim mentioned is general seating, right? Or do you buy?
No, I got specific seats.
You do? Oh.
I think there might be an area that is open seating.
Okay.
At the Boulder Theater. I know sometimes they do that
right.
for different shows, but we've actually got some seats.
All right. I should have bought tickets with you. Been in a group.
I didn't know who would be interested. I know I've been following him on YouTube for a while now.
Yeah, so have I. All right, so let's move on, and let's. So the next thing that we've got is the holyhormones.com, and this was sent to us by Brian Walsh from the Rational Alchemy podcast, and so he does his Rational Alchemy is on the Greeley radio station, the Greeley.
It's from Fort Collins.
Yeah, Fort Collins. I'm sorry, Fort Collins. And they have kind of it's like NPR type of deal.
That's like that.
And they are. So these people are on the same network as him. So, and this came to his attention. And so basically what this is, when you read this, to me, I mean, they're specifically targeting the HPV vaccine, which unfortunately I don't know enough about, and I was trying to do some research on this before we got started, and everything that I'm reading, I mean, I'm not sure how to take it. I went to the CDC's website, and I can't confirm any of the things that people are saying about the vaccination, but people are saying that this particular vaccination, that 82% of the people that are getting it are having adverse effects. And so I'm like, well, but I can't find out if that's true or not. That would seem awfully high.
Yeah, especially given the thousands of vaccines being given.
Yeah, so I think that they're... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
I was just saying, yeah, that would definitely have made a lot more major news if it's 80%.
Well, so I think that they are messing with the statistics somehow, and I don't exactly know what they're doing. And I was hoping to get a straight answer from the CDC, but it's not there. Or I should say I haven't found it yet.
What do they consider adverse effects?
Well,
I mean, that is such a generic term.
Well, that's the other problem with the article that I read is that it didn't detail what the effects were. Because is it 82%, but like they get a rash?
Yeah.
Or is
there's some rumors that it's been causing death, and there's also rumors that it's been outlawed in some countries.
Right, and that's on this webpage that this one particular girl died from this vaccine, and of course I can't verify that either.
Died shortly after getting the vaccine,
which makes me suspicious. Just the wording.
The whole thing is basically kind of an appeal to emotion. It's going with it's the sisterhood thing. It's basically saying, this is dedicated to all those who have dealt with anything like this, which is pretty much everybody.
Right. But one of the interesting things on their site, it says, we believe in science-based medicine. Our primary goal is to provide the information necessary for you to make an informed decision regardless of regarding your health and wellness beliefs. This is the same kind of rhetoric that we see from other anti-vaxxers as well, who they're saying, we just are giving out information, even though they are anti-vaxxers. They don't want to claim they're anti-vaxxers, but yet that's the kind of rhetoric that they use to do it. And we saw this a lot from the organization out of Australia, the Australian Vaccination Network, and they used the same kind of wording, that they were just providing it. They were just in a place for information, albeit everything else that you read is complete anti-vaccination. And this particular site, and I think that they have a religious bent, looks like to me.
I'm looking.
Hormones.
I found a link on an ABC news website on August 19th, 2009. It says there was 32 deaths associated with it. That's in 2009. I don't know what it's been since then.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so...
And again, when they say that it's 32 deaths, I mean, that's just really tough to read. For example, on here, there's the, I don't know if you saw the letter from 9/14/09, letter to Dr. Margaret Hamburg. It's a mother whose daughter died shortly after she had the vaccine, and that's tragic. Don't get me wrong. It sounds like it's a very they don't know what happened, and in fact, she says in here, if I could quote, sadly she died. Sadly she died in the shower, and to this day I do not know the reason why she died, as her autopsy report states, quote, death unknown. Megan was very active and healthy young lady prior to Gardasil, and I truly believe in my heart that she would have been here today if she had not been vaccinated. Okay, the first part of that sentence says that, the first part said cause of death unknown, and then in her heart she knows it was the Gardasil.
Well,
that is not causation.
And
that is anecdotal.
Right.
That sounds like Jenny McCarthy's mommy sense. Jenny McCarthy's mommy sense.
This sounds like a parent who has no answers and is pointing the finger at whatever is convenient.
And exactly. And we see a lot of that in the anti-vax community because these people feel so powerless, and I sympathize with them, but you don't get to choose what it was.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're going to be talking about this some more today, about how you actually back up evidence of what you believe and stuff. But, I mean, this poor girl, again, I feel terrible that she died so suddenly after, so young and for no given reason. She did 1,000 different events, I'm sure, in the day before her death.
But to take the devil's advocate side of it, just because there's all the anti-vaccination people out there, it doesn't mean that there isn't a link, because there are a lot of times with medications, it can take sometimes a couple of decades for the link to be realized and for them to finally say, oh yes, there is a link between this and whatever adverse effect that is coming up now. There are a lot of psychological medications for depression and things like that. That was the case. It took about 10 years for them to realize that some of them actually increased the rate of suicide.
Yeah, well, and that's true. I mean, certainly there is a risk to vaccines, and they do all the best testing they can, but not until they put it out into the population do they really get back better statistics. And if there is a problem, and we've seen this with other vaccines, that they've had to, bring them back in and recalibrate them. So if that is going on here, hopefully that will happen. But it's hard to tell based on what we're reading.
It is, and this website clearly has an agenda. That's not to say that they're wrong. To your point, I mean, although, again, this is very common rhetoric for the anti-vaxxers, and they've been proven wrong everywhere else. So I think the burden of proof is on them. They can't just conjecture this. They've conjectured before and been wrong. I think we have fairly good reason to assume they're wrong again. There was an article on here I thought was really interesting, and I can't find it now, that talked about them sending, here it is, where they're talking about, this is 8/29/11, where they found recombinant, I'm not saying it right, sorry.
Recombinant.
Thank you. HPV DNA found on multiple samples of the Gardasil, and they said they sent all these samples, and indeed there was HPV DNA there. It's a vaccine. Doesn't that mean that they're basically injecting you with a weak form of HPV so that your body knows how to fight it when it actually gets it?
It's going to be weak or dead. I don't know if it's a live vaccine or not. Sometimes they do weakened ones, and we see that for the flu. We saw that for swine flu. We saw a weakened vaccine, and we also saw a dead vaccine. So there's two types of vaccines that they could be using. But it is going to have DNA. There will be DNA from the HPV.
Right. So the conclusion from this one said that they sent 13 samples from 13 different lots, and 100% of them had HPV DNA. That's kind of like having that fire truck be red, isn't it? I mean, of course there's DNA of HPV. It's a vaccine. It just seems like one of those articles that's like, it's stating the obvious and making it sound ominous.
They found grape DNA in wine.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
How'd that happen? So again, just really makes it sketchy to buy anything. Again, I'm making assumptions here. I'm no scientist. I don't know vaccine stuff, but that just seems like a duh.
Well, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Misty.
Oh, I was just saying some of the vaccinations that they're starting to do now are genetically modified versions of whatever they're vaccinating against. So yeah, you're going to have the DNA of the virus or whatever they're vaccinating against. So
bottom line is, we should listen to their show and see where they're coming from. I know that Brian has concerns about this group, and he's also concerned that he has a science-based show on the same network, and so he'd like people to check it out. And if they need to be challenged, we should call in and challenge them. But I haven't listened to the show yet, so I don't know. Anything else?
I did find on this.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
On the CDC's site, I did find that they say 12,424 reports of adverse events to the HPV vaccination through December 2008.
But that doesn't tell me how many they gave out.
It says 23 million doses.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's pretty low.
It should be monitored like any vaccination. So,
yeah.
All right. So, I told you all I would give my review of God No, Signs You Might Be an Atheist and Other Magical Tales.
And I've got God No on hold at the library.
Okay.
I'm like number 19 of 27 in the Denver system, so don't give away the surprise ending, okay? No spoilers.
Well, okay. So I won't tell you that he dropped his cock in a blow dryer.
Oh my God.
Poor chicken.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a fun read, and a lot of it is about atheism, but a lot of it is just him kind of dialoguing about things that he has done, and it was a lot of fun. And I realized from the title, I'm sorry, there's no links there. I'll put links in later. It was a fun book. I enjoyed it. But the better book that I read, and when I say better, it was this one was science based, and it was talking about super crunchers, and it was talking about people who started to take statistics and use statistics in place of where human, I guess, experience and anecdote was usually in play, such as when you were out getting scouting for people for a baseball team. And it's funny because Moneyball is out now, and he refers to Moneyball and what happened in that particular situation. And so then he talks about another gentleman who was looking for statistics and trends, so that he could show which wines would be best based on which year. And it was actually, at this point, looks like he was fairly successful in predicting those, because he predicted them back from the 90s and 92, and he said that all the wines in 92 were going to be very good, but 91 would be even better. And he was looking at, I'm sure it was a red of some sort, because a white was. But anyway, so the book talks about generally, and about how humans are really bad at making those kinds of judgments a lot of times, and how by adding in what these super crunchers are doing and taking those statistics, that by using them we can make better decisions. And it doesn't completely take the human out of it, right? There's still a human equation in there, but by using what these people are generating and using this massive database, we can make doctors better. We can make better baseball teams. We can make better wines. We can all these things that we can make better by utilizing these kinds of numbers, and how these types of numbers in and of themselves will outperform humans trying to do the same thing. So it was a good read. I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. And if you want to
just added it to my hold list.
Yes, that is a good idea. I really enjoyed it. It goes along with the other book that I read, where Mistakes Were Made But Not By Me, and it talks a little bit more, even more bluntly, about how humans make flawed decisions based on what they think is evidence.
Cognitive dissonance is very strong.
Yes, it is. All right, are we ready to move on here? And
the moment we've all been waiting for?
Yes, we are going to analyze my psychic reading. Not analyze me, my reading. Got it, guys?
I don't know. There's some good material for a little bit of psychoanalysis.
We can psychoanalyze me too.
Okay.
So what I've done is I've broken this up into chunks, and the first chunk is the longest because it had the most vague gibberish. And then it kind of gets, a little bit better from there. But we went to the fair a couple weeks ago, and we talked about that. And I got a psychic reading, and Misty recorded it. And so, unfortunately, the recording is not fantastic. So I will, when we put this in the episode out, these chunks we're going to put them in there, and hopefully that they'll be listenable and not too bad. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and play this first piece. And I know it's going to be difficult to be quiet, but let's let it play so that we can have a discussion about this section of audio. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Right.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
What is the name of the deck you're using?
Morgan Greer.
Morgan Greer deck? Okay.
That it?
I think so.
Okay. Stick those things on your head.
Okay. All right.
Whoa.
Wow. Oh, so that we can hear. Oh, okay.
So you,
My name is Brian.
what's up?
Just here enjoying the fair.
Yeah, but why are you here? Why are you doing this reading? Why do you want it?
Oh, I would like to just see if you can tell me anything.
Probably not.
Probably not? Who's the optimist now?
Well, I don't know. We'll find out. What are you doing in your life these days?
Well, working.
Doing what?
I'm a geophysical technician.
Geophysical technician? Okay. How's your life going in general?
Good.
This wheel, it says it's turning up. This wheel of fortune is about good things about to happen.
Okay.
So is there something you know that's in the offing?
No.
Expect good stuff. The next one out is the Seven of Cups, and what this is about is your life script. So it's kind of unusual you get such a heady profession because you're a guy who is very sensitive. You get life through your heart rather than you get it through your head. You notice that?
No.
Remember back when you were a kid? Can you think back when you first were a sensitive kid? Because you've got an overlay on it. You put up this overlay, which is intellect, over the top of your easily influenced feelings. Now, can you think back when you were young?
Well, the problem is most kids are emotional and feel that way.
No, not all kids are emotional. Believe me, I've got 5 of them. And I can tell you that they're all different. This sensitivity to that sensitivity to that sensitivity. You were a very sensitive kid. And the reason that you went to your intellect is because you were so sensitive. So here's the way this script plays out. You are to learn about all the roles that you play in life and yet not become one. You know what I mean? You have to learn about all the masks that you wear and yet not become that mask. Simply know who you are behind that role. You're a father, you're a brother, you're a lover, you're what have you. And behind that, there's you.
Okay.
All the time. It's not in other words, you don't become a fake. This is about all the gifts that you have yet to unwrap. This is about living your life with passion. This is the Grail Castle and its let wrap. This is about having a passionate life. This is about having the kind of spirituality that's grounded in reality. So you won't do well with fairy stuff, but something that's real, something that makes sense to you, and yet has a magical quotient. That's what would work. Even if you don't have it now, that's what would work. So rationalizing the spiritual life is not going to work, but accepting possibility would. This is about you evolving as a person. This is your creativity and sexuality, which are all tied up together. And this is about you celebrating who you are on a daily basis. And the way you do that is before you drop off to sleep at night, you look back and you take an assessment of the day and you pick out the good thing. If you didn't step on the ant that day, for example. The thing that made that day special. Not some success in business or some problem solved necessarily, but mainly some kind of emotional connection. Got it? And this is this 10 of rods. This is about your tendency, and by the way, this may harken back to when you were a very sensitive kid. You can remember that. You tend to take on everybody else's stuff. You're very sensitive to the people around you. Now the good thing is you're capable. You can handle it. The bad thing is you do it. So you have to kind of be more discriminating about what you take on, what you take responsibility for. You understand how it works? You become responsible for other people. Oh, this is my fault. This is I caused this. That sort of thing. Or you feel somebody else's pain. You have to kind of back off from that sometimes. Not totally, but somewhat.
All right. Well, Ian, you're snickering. Go ahead and give some serious analysis.
You have to be grounded in reality, but believe all this crap. That's what I seriously heard him say. It's talking about how your spirituality needs to be grounded in reality, but now you have to believe in all this other crap. And you have to have an open mind and believe in, like, wait a moment.
Right.
All right. So in terms of a cold reading, he was pretty vague. He was fishing around, but I noticed that he seemed like he wanted to reinforce the idea that you were a sensitive child. He wanted you to cop to it, essentially.
Right.
He wanted you to reinforce that. I did get the impression from early on he kind of knew you were psychic testing.
Oh, he did. And here's
because
the thing.
you said you made the point, or he asked you what you were doing there, and you said, I don't know, can you tell me?
Right, exactly. It was worse than that, because we were in a gaggle in front of him, shifting money around so that we could do this reading with him. It was horrible. We made a huge mistake right from the get-go. He knew what was up.
Well, you could have also gotten a clear recording right off the bat by telling him something like, I want to record this to make sure that I remember everything. You could have gotten him to actually participate in the recording.
Well,
instead of recording him covertly.
No, we didn't record it covertly. We told him, can we record this?
Yeah, and he used headsets anyways, because he apparently is just a quiet talker. He had headsets so that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you could have gotten him to participate in the recording much better if you'd sold him something like, I just want to remember everything so that I've got your advice.
You know why we chose him?
Why'd you choose him?
He was the psychic for cynics.
That's what it said on his table.
Yeah. So that's why we chose him. And in this, so we're in front of his, his table, and we're all, it was bad. He knew it was up from the get-go. And so that's how the reading started, right? And then he starts with this whole sensitive child stuff. And most children are sensitive, and they're sensitive about certain things. If they're not, they're psychopaths. And Misty told me that.
That's true. Yeah. Now, when he had his sign up saying he was a psychic for cynics.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, did he spell cynics with a P? Because I would like the symmetry of that if he did.
No.
I'm just saying, it's a fair thing.
So here's the thing. He goes through there, and it's just, and it's random gobbledygook, right? And then, the
he was fishing
thing,
around. He had laid down cards.
Yes.
And I'm picturing the cards that he laid down there. And he was fishing based off the images that he had in the cards, which is a pretty common cold reading technique.
Yes, it is. That's how most of the psychics on the line did it. So, so expect good things. He tells me, oh, well, how's your life going? I say, it's going good. Oh, well, it's turning up. Expect good things. Oh, okay, great. And that's typical kind of stuff. Make the person get in the reading feel good about sitting there, right? Oh, hey, things are turning up. Things are good for you.
And stating the obvious as well. I mean, he's talking about your intellect overriding stuff. Well, yeah, you work with geophysics. Of course you have intellect.
Okay, there's the other thing, right. So the other thing is that I told him my job right from the start. You can make assumptions about me right from there, about, intellect and being a logical thinker and stuff like that. I think you could move forward with that, no problem. And I didn't want to tell him that, but on the other hand, you got to play the game a little, but I was trying to decide, I don't want to give him too much. And so I was very quiet, right? I was just letting him go through it. This whole things are turning up. And then this thing about, how I take stuff on from people around me and, and so I was like, okay, I don't see that.
Well, let me ask you, how much of what he said to you seemed fair? How much of what he said was actually right on the money? Let's disregard the fact that he was fishing around, he was saying vague stuff. How much of what he said was actually on the money?
Oh, I would say that I tended to be sensitive as a child. But I wouldn't say that I take on the stuff from people around me. Now, I have no reason to do that for the most part.
Yeah, that's more of a habit of females to do that, so that would have been more accurate if he had been talking to a woman.
I'll tell you what though, when at work, if something's not working right, I will say, hey, listen, I'm not sure if I'm doing something right here. I think I'm missing something. And because when I go and approach somebody with something, that way they're automatically helping me, and I use it as a strategy to try and keep things, moving forward. I try not to put blame on other people. And, I will happily say, hey, this might be my fault. How can we fix this? Right? But I'm not necessarily, I don't see that as I'm taking stuff on, right? Because I'm really not taking it on. I'm just trying to solve a problem.
Right. Doing right now is actually one of the things they want you to do. You're looking to try and find if anything fits.
Exactly. And that's what these psychic readers want you to do. They want you to later on try and fit these things in. And for the most part, I would say that this is very general, and it could apply to most of the people, many of the people that are sitting down in a psychic fair. And so
they're going to want to buy into it.
They're going to want to buy into it, right? And so I for me, it just seemed like, he was just moving forward, and I wasn't giving him anything, so he just moved forward with it. And really, as children, we are fairly sensitive about this. My kids are, and particularly about different things. And what's interesting, though, is that the things that I was sensitive about, later on he's going to tell me how good at them I am and how natural they come to me.
Yeah, what he was doing is called the Barnum effect. It's the tendency of people to attribute what they're hearing to themselves, even though they're not realizing that it's attributable to a huge amount of the population.
And they've done a lot of statistics, a lot of these types of things where they'll give everybody the same reading, right, and say, well, how much of it applied to you? And you find that people will always find something, and that's what they will take away from it and remember. They'll miss all the misses, like, the life is turning up, expect good things. But I thought it was interesting. It's like, you take this stuff on from people around you. But the good news is you can handle it. The bad news is that you do it. Well, if I can handle it, why is it also a bad thing? It's giving both sides of it. He wants to have it both ways.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Well, he was trying to do a hit or miss there. He was like, all right, well, if I say it both ways, I have a 50-50 chance of getting it right.
Right, exactly. And he does this a lot. So, all right,
okay.
Here's the next
Well,
piece.
continue on.
All right.
This is emotional feeding. That's what this Page of Cups is about. You might need some of this. Somehow your heart needs some feeding. Your heart's very young. And that could be why you cover it up, because it feels tender. You're a natural writer, don't you? Got a natural talent in that place. Not a bad idea to embark on. The Page of Swords is about writing. Strong intellect. You can create anything. This Ace of Swords is about someone who's been gifted, born with that strong intellect, which gets you anything your heart desires. This is a very ambiguous card. This Rod's card, this Eight of Rod's card. What it's about is saying that you've got a lot of spiritual gifts. Even if you don't believe it, you got it. It also says that your life journey is pretty easy. You don't have a lot of difficult times ahead of you. It's a pretty easy life. Here in the distance is a castle. That's the Grail Castle, the home of the self. That's finding out who you are. It's a lifelong journey. But it's not a difficult journey for you. But it is a spiritual journey. Even if you don't believe it. Nonetheless, that's how it plays out. You planning on a trip?
No.
Age of Pentacles says that there's some kind of thing coming up, some kind of a journey. Not a big deal. I mean, it could be as simple as flying to California for a week. There's some kind of a journey coming up. And that Four of Swords is about you taking in information from Knight and Repose. You don't have to act on it, but it's a time of taking in new information. That's where you're at right now. How does that fit into your life?
I'm always trying to learn.
Yeah. Is there something specific going on right now? Very creative. Don't need any armor. There's no armor in here except for the Knight in Repose. That's just about laying back and taking in. This says that you're very creative. You only need movable armor. That's what that shield is about. What kind of creativity do you invest yourself in besides your job?
I do web design.
Okay, there you go. That's what I'm talking about.
All right. So, I mean, more general, ambiguous stuff. But, this whole young heart thing, that probably makes people feel good too. Oh, you got a young heart.
So when are you going to California now?
What's that?
When are you going to California now?
Yeah, exactly. The whole trip thing. Yeah, I'm not going on any trip. There's nothing planned.
He just said you were.
Exactly. I know. But here's the thing. So here's his complete and total utter failure. You're a good writer.
Yes.
I'm anything
Mr. Dyslexia.
but.
No, he didn't say good writer. He said you're a natural writer.
Oh, whatever.
He's the way he's got that in there. He's both complimenting you on you're a natural writer. You are, he's opening up something that maybe you've had thoughts of in the past, and he's buttering you up at the same time.
Well, he's trying, but good writer. No, come on.
No. Ian was
natural writer.
Around you enough that you picked up a bit of his aura, and he was picking up on Ian.
Yeah, Ian wasn't at the fair. It must have been Misty that he was picking up on.
Yeah, I guess. I'm a writer, so I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, so, that was, a complete and utter fail on that one. Another more you're a strong intellect. Well, I do geophysics, so, okay. The psychic gifts. Man, they love to tell people that they have psychic gifts. You tell that to everybody. Because that makes people feel good. Hey, you're part of the club. We're all psychics here, and you too can be part of that club. You got a lot of psychic gifts. Your journey is a spiritual one. Yada yada yada.
Even if you don't believe it, Brian.
Exactly. Even if I don't believe it, and of course that's because he knew we were skeptics right from the start. My life journey is easy. Not a lot of challenges. What is he? That is absolutely bogus. Does anybody really not have challenges in his life?
I thought that was a little out there. Your life journey is easy, not a lot of challenges. What card was he basing that on?
Oh, I don't know.
I bet you he was basing it off of your profession, thinking that you must make a lot of money in your profession, being a geophysicist.
Yeah, it ain't that good.
I bet you it was a large assumption.
Well, huge assumption. What else did it? And then he's telling me about all the masks that I wear to protect myself, and then he's telling me that they're but not a lot of armor, except for that Rod's card over there, but whatever. It's like, okay, keep going. So, I don't know if this next part is where it might go downhill from here.
There is a lot of that, like you were talking about before. Everything is...
Did you lose your thought? Did we lose Kim?
Oh?
Kim!
Come back to us!
Sound like you had something important to say.
You know what? She was on to something. I know she was.
I'm sorry. I hit the mute button by mistake. No, I was trying to say, the language that he used made everything be like, all his misses were hits, because if you were taking a trip, aha. If you weren't taking a trip, oh, it wasn't important. And I know he goes on soon about how, the cards are always right.
Yeah.
And, if they're so right, and this trip doesn't matter if you are having it or not having it, then why did it come up?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, but it's pretty ambiguous. Everything that is pretty much 50-50. Either way, you can interpret it as, right or wrong.
You could easily say, oh, the trip was a spiritual one.
Well, we did, you know what? We did just get back from our asshole travel.
Yes. So, he said you were going on a trip, not that you just came back from one.
Okay, right. So there's no trip. And the other thing he said earlier is, I get life through the heart. What the heck is that supposed to mean anyway?
You get what?
Life through the heart.
Oh, well, yeah.
You're a sensitive child.
Apparently,
so that's
exactly.
why.
That's exactly where he's going with that, I think.
Life.
The problem is that I've never been anybody else. So how am I supposed to know if I was more sensitive than anybody else? I don't have anybody else's experiences to quantify that. And so this is an ambiguous statement.
That's all that matters. He knows it all. Have you not been listening to him? He really sounds like he has all the answers and knows everything about you.
You're right.
Has anyone ever called you emo?
No. I have a child I call emo. All right. So, okay, let's move on here. I think this might be
Little emo.
I think this is where it starts to get combative. Let's see.
How's your relationship with your dad?
Well, what is this saying?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. How's your relationship with your dad?
It's fair.
Fair. Why only fair?
We don't get along.
How come?
Reasons. What is it telling you?
You've got to tell me. The card came up in order to provoke the response.
So what is the card telling you?
So the card is saying, here's your dad.
Okay.
So I'm saying, how's your relationship with your dad? You're saying fair. It's an issue. It's an issue in you, and the card would not have come up. The cards come out at random, but with purpose. Okay? Cards come up and it said, something going on with dad. So I'm saying to you, what's going on with dad? You say your relationship is fair, and I'm pursuing that line. So my question is, how come it's only fair? What's the problem?
Well, what is this? It's not telling you anything more than that?
No. I'm asking you to tell me something more than that.
Well, it seems like you're fishing, is what it seems like you're doing.
Absolutely.
And so
I mean,
that's cold reading techniques. And of course, as you can see, as you've already said, I'm not going to accept that very well.
Why is that?
So I'd like to know what you're getting as far as
what I'm
that.
getting is that you have a problem with your dad.
But I told him that.
Yeah, the card provoked the conversation.
Okay.
So I'm asking you if you want to explore it.
We don't speak in that particular way.
Okay. So it's less than fair. It's really very...
Well, no, it's fair. It's fair now that we don't speak.
That you don't speak. Okay. Is that good?
Yes, it's better.
That you don't speak?
Yes, I'd say that's very good.
Okay. Well, that tells me quite a bit. Does it tell you quite a bit?
What does that tell you?
It tells me that you have a very difficult relationship with your father.
Okay, so here's the deal. I didn't want to answer that question because it's a fork in the road. There's two ways to go with that. The relationship is good and he can move on with that and how that relationship is good and important, or I can say that relationship is not very good and then he can go in to kind of where it went anyway. And maybe I should have just said that, but I didn't want to tell him too much and it got combative, but not because I'll talk to whoever, about the issues that I have with my dad. It's really not that big a deal to me to talk about that. But I didn't want to tell him because if once you start doing that, you
didn't want to feed him.
Right. I didn't want to feed him. And once I did that, the reading was over at that point anyway. Once he brought up the father card, probably for most people, that's over. I bet most people can, talk about their father, good or bad, and move on from there. And so it's an easy out for the psychic. Yeah. And so I did not want to feed him. But it gets kind of interesting. I don't know. Missy, what did you think of that? Missy,
well,
sorry.
With the whole father thing, a lot of people who are into weird beliefs, metaphysics, things like that, a lot of them do have bad and insecure relationships with their parents. So that would be kind of a given for a lot of people that were there, and I'm sure that was his assumption. But in general, a lot of men do have issues with their fathers.
Okay.
Whether you want to say it's Freud or whatever, but
one way or another, everyone has something with their father.
I don't think it's necessarily Freud. I think it's the fact that a lot of the people who are adults right now, their fathers grew up in a different time and are not really very demonstrative, and the people who are adults now are in a culture where men are more demonstrative. So you've got this huge thing where you don't really bond with your father until you don't really bond with or come to understand your father until some sort of a huge revelation takes place. Yeah.
So, here's the deal. So my mother and father divorced when I was young. My father was never really around. He never really, made much effort to have anything to do with me. And at this point, we don't have a very strong relationship. And we've tried. It doesn't work. And I'm pretty comfortable with how that relationship is, actually, at the moment. Us not speaking really is better because when we speak, we just don't have anything in common because I didn't grow up with him. And he's just not a person I know or would care to know if I met him on the street.
And you see, right here, you brought up your father.
Yeah.
You have no problem talking about him.
No.
If you're psychic, he can go all sorts of directions. But I think everyone, you bring up the father, good or bad, we all have memories of our father. We all have ideas of our father. In my case, it would have been really weird because my first question would be, okay, what's father?
Right.
As you guys know, both Dale and Howard. And in a psychic reading, that's why I would ask, which father? Because in my mind, Howard's as much as a father to me as Dale. Everyone has something father, no matter what. I don't know anyone who doesn't have some father thing. But still, like I said, everyone has a father thing. I have two of them. To me, that's one of the easiest things to ask. Like, okay, you want to try and get something out of someone? Oh, father, that came up. What's the significance of your father? Good or ill? Everyone,
right.
They're willing to talk, will have a story about their father.
I think it's a generational thing, too, because I bet there's a lot more people our age that have weird situations with their fathers because we didn't get to come out of that generation where the mother and the father stayed together forever and ever, and that was it. Divorce rate is higher. We're coming out of a totally different thing because it's just, a different generational phenomenon.
My wife's the father thing would go a completely different direction because her parents did stay together, yet, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they have some serious issues that at times he kind of wish they wouldn't have stayed together. He thinks it would have been better for her. So, the father thing go all manner of directions.
Right.
Well, and as I think the point here is it's going to, regardless of what direction it goes into, it is most likely going to bring up an emotional connection.
Absolutely.
And you can do it with the mother just as easily as the father.
Absolutely.
You're going to get info from somebody when you bring them up because,
Right.
like you say, even if you have the best relationship, that's going to come out.
You
right.
should have told him you were a test tube baby.
It was mentioned once, and here we are talking about it.
I know, exactly. So, yeah, but...
And even there, it's going to hit you, and if you are believing in the stuff, you will talk about and let out and let him go whatever direction he needs to make you believe it.
Right. Instead, I started pushing, and I don't think I'm going to play the rest of this. I think I can sum it up for you because you kind of see where it's going. And basically, I started, challenging him on things and trying to really push him, but he wouldn't go back to the cards. At that point, he had me. He had this emotional thing, and so he's like, I guess I do need to because he talks about how the cards are
Your relationship with men and everything.
We got to play. Okay, we got to do it. I was going to try and stop, but it's kind of interesting where he goes, I think. Right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll play it.
Okay, but I told you that. I told you that.
Yes, and if you're going to have a difficult relationship with your father, you're going to have a difficult relationship with yourself. So that explains why feelings are squashed.
Okay.
So all of this that I'm telling you, what the cards are telling me, is that the basis for all of this is this problem. You don't have to do anything about it. It's simply a commentary.
Okay.
What else do you want to know?
I'd like to see what the cards are telling you about that relationship.
They're not telling me anything. It's simply provoking the conversation we're having. See, what you're doing is you're testing.
I am testing, absolutely.
Right. And I'm not here to be tested.
Why not?
Because it's not my job.
Okay, if he's not there to be tested, why is he the psychic for cynics?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Ding, ding, ding.
And he basically just gave his whole spiel out. He's like, oh, well, the cards are there to elicit a response from you.
Right.
They're not telling me anything. All they're telling me is I should bring this up to get a response out of you.
Well, he says something interesting about the cards here in a bit, but yeah. So I mean, there were some interesting points there. The idea that if you have a difficult relationship with your father, you have a difficult relationship with yourself. What? I'm not sure what to do with that.
Well, everybody's going to have issues that they have to work through if they have a difficult relationship with their father, but I wouldn't say it necessarily means you have an issue with yourself. Whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
I think everybody has an issue with themselves. I think everybody's got stuff that they got to work through.
Well, okay.
Well, and it gets worse.
Otherwise,
It gets worse,
there would
yeah.
be no point in having, yourself past life regressed so you can resolve all these things.
Right. And I did edit. I did edit some of this to try and make it go a little faster. So there is some flipping. I didn't really take out anything that I thought I could release the whole thing, but for the podcast, for this, I thought I tried to edit it. So I'm going to play the next little piece here.
Now, look, here's the basic premise. You sit down, you shuffle the cards, they come out at random. But I'll tell you something, these cards are never wrong. I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't need to ask why the cards came up. But they all came up and they're all appropriate.
Wow, really?
They all came up with what? What did he say?
They all,
Earlier, he said that they come out at random, but with a purpose.
right, random with a purpose, but they're always correct, and they're never wrong. Well, I can point out several instances where they were demonstrably wrong, right? But yet he wouldn't have seen it that way. He would have, he would have tried to couch it in such a way that it was a hit.
Yeah.
So this idea that they come out and they're demonstrably wrong. Now, he gets this idea though that this relationship is very tender because I don't want to tell him anything. And so he pursues that. But the fact of the matter is that I will sit here and tell you everything if you want to hear it, right? But the cards didn't tell him that. He wasn't psychic enough to know that actually I don't have a problem talking about it. So there you go, another miss.
Yeah.
And the cards are never wrong. But he can be. The cards might be right, but he can be wrong, but the cards are always right. It's kind
Well,
of
they're right even if you don't know it.
Right. Yes. I hope that this isn't the same one again.
Now, look, here's the basic premise.
It was.
I'm simply saying that since there is a problem in that relationship, I'm saying that it's affecting all of your relationships.
Okay.
And don't you want to do something about that in yourself?
How is it affecting my relationships?
I'm asking you. It's bound to. If I had a bad relationship with my father, which I did initially, then I'm going to have a bad relationship with all men in my life because my father is the primary male that I'm learning from, and I'm going to have a bad relationship with my kids because I'm their father. And that's the model that I'm following. Doesn't that make sense?
So then I should have bad relationship with all the men in my life, is what you're saying.
You would have a problematic relationship with all men in your life if you had a bad relationship with your father that's not resolved. Yes.
Okay.
It's a given. It's a given.
It's a given.
If a woman has a bad relationship with her mother, she's going to have a bad relationship with her daughters. It's just the way it is. If you will, it's sound psychology.
Okay. Well, then I would say that I don't have bad relationships with the men in my life.
Okay. Good. That would be, I would say, almost a miracle.
Okay.
Because I worked in the men's movement for a long time, and I will tell you quite frankly, I never saw anybody who had a bad relationship with his father who had a good relationship with me.
Okay.
Ever. So you would be uncannily
Okay.
in that regard. So I congratulate you if that's true.
Okay.
To the extent that it is.
Okay.
He goes on to say that he would challenge me on that.
Not only is he psychic, but he's also a psychologist.
Well, exactly. That was
Pseudo-psychologist nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought it was quite funny because I would say that I have normal relationships with men.
Well, he's not very observant because he had just seen you standing in front of him with a group of mostly men. It was mostly guys in our group, just a couple of women.
And they were handing me money.
Yeah, and they were, yeah. Oh, that's the kind of relationship.
Oh, that's a just come out of the bathroom.
Know really what his normal relationship with the men is. We're not going to know details.
Oh, guys. Terrible.
So, what card did he come up with that gave him the father issues?
The Emperor.
Okay.
So when you were doing readings, how did you read the Emperor?
Doesn't necessarily have to be the father. I would say it could be anybody who is a powerful force in your life that is, could be either beneficial or it could be negative.
That's even more gobbledygook than he gave me.
No, I'm just saying. I would actually have to, when I was doing readings, I would base what I said to the person off of what impression. No, actually no. I'd base it off of what reaction I had when I looked at the card. If I saw it, if I glanced at it and it seemed negative to me when I looked at it, if it seemed painful or beneficial or in context of the other cards, if it seemed negative or it seemed positive, I would go with whatever I saw there.
Okay. But what's interesting about it, though, is that up until this point, I wasn't really giving him anything. He clearly was not making a lot of hits with me. He needed a home run. And based on everything we've said about fathers, that was the way to go with that card for the home run.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's where he went. And he probably would have done that with most people there at the fair because he wants to make that home run because he wants to bring you back for another reading. He really wants to get you, to come and talk to him later so he can get more money out of you.
Yes, he's lonely.
He's low.
And I'd have to say also, I think that he was reading the cards. He wasn't reading his own instincts.
Well,
so if that's the case, then he wasn't really being psychic. He was, dealing cards.
Well, but he started out.
He doesn't have very good instincts.
Yeah, he doesn't. And the other thing, he did start out he knew we were skeptics. He at least was able to go that far with the beginning of the card reading. So I don't know. I've had other readings, right, from other psychics, but I always knew them. So this was the first time I had done a psychic with somebody, or a reading with a psychic that I didn't know. But what's interesting here is that he deferred, and I've heard other psychics do this. They defer everything back to the cards.
Aren't there not psychics that do readings without cards?
Yeah, there are. And so when people would call the line, they would ask for a clairvoyant. I want to talk to a clairvoyant because they're the ones that are supposed to be able to see the future and stuff like that. They didn't just want a card reader, and probably for a lot of the reasons that we just demonstrated here. That it's just it's a constant crutch for them. They don't need to be psychic because the cards are going to tell them what to do.
That's what I was saying. If psychic ability is real, I would think tarot cards are like a cop-out, the wuss's way out.
I would tend to agree with that, but most people aren't confident enough in their cold reading skills to just sit back and do that without the cards. We had a couple that were, and they were quite good cold readers, and they would get a lot of callbacks. Even if they used cards, they were far more comfortable with their clairvoyant abilities, I'd say.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I remember, and you know who I'm talking about here. I'm not going to use his name on the air, but you remember Mr.
Let's call him Ken. Okay,
let's call him Ken. Mr. Conspiracy, though, who would sit there and say, I think she's lying to you.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
Well, okay, even worse. We had another psychic on the line, and this is aside, but when he was doing these readings, he would put the person on mute himself, and he would start saying gobbledygook like, you're getting to that age where you really ought to think about euthanasia.
Didn't he one time forget to mute himself?
He forgot to mute himself one time. I think it was the last time he did shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. And we had another gentleman who didn't seem to have a lot of personality when you would just go up and talk to him, but man, he could keep people on the phone, and he just did numerology. But he could keep them on the phone, but he didn't get a lot of callbacks. So, yeah, that was, overall.
That's the one you're going to refer to as Ken because of his wife, Barbie.
That's one, I was thinking that's where you're going. Yeah, that's Ken. I know who you're talking about, Mr. Conspiracy too, though, so.
Oh, yeah. He was really good at that. He was.
Well, what frustrates me is what you guys are talking about, the horrible manipulation that goes on. And then, like with this guy where we recorded, he was saying, this is solid psychology. Who's going to know if he is full of crap? Because it's not like there's a lot of people out there studying the theories of, relationships with fathers.
Well, fortunately for me, I had somebody who had studied psychology with me.
Yes, you came armed.
I came armed. But not that I needed help to realize that was bunk. This idea that if you have a bad relationship, that you'll have a bad relationship with all men. I mean, give me a break.
And your children.
And did you hear all of the anecdotes, or all the logical fallacies, the appeal to authority? Because he was an older gentleman. It was appeal to authority. When he was talking about the sensitive kids, I have 5 kids and they're not all sensitive. Believe me, because I have 5 of them. I have,
Well, and of course you gotta trust your elders, Sonny.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Well, he was talking about how you're a rare case as well, as far as being able to have decent relationships with other people. Yeah. He was saying, that's rare, or something along those lines.
He said it would be a miracle if that was the case. So basically he called me a liar, is what he did. He called me a liar.
Hallelujah.
Oh, I'm so hurt. I feel, I'm getting verklempt. Talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
All right, so that was fun. It was actually a good time. I had a good time. I know it sounded combative there, and it was because I didn't want to give him anything. It wasn't because I didn't want to talk to him about it. Well, I didn't, because I wanted him to be psychic, but he wasn't.
Next time we definitely have to go to somebody that's not using tarot cards.
Right, and we can't prime him first by huddling as a gaggle in front of him.
Yeah, but there are some very good tarot card readers out there.
Absolutely, but then that's who we need to, we need to seek them out. But at $20 a pop, it's expensive to go around, but ultimately they're just doing cold readings, and he was a poor cold reader, but there are some very good ones out there. So I'm sure that we
No, actually, I think I'd have to disagree with you on that. I think he was actually a fairly decent cold reader. I just don't think. I think that you weren't giving him the feedback that he needed, and he couldn't go from there.
Well, that's probably
But I think he was a fairly decent cold reader to start off with.
He might have been if I had given him more. And so one of the thoughts
if he'd had more to work with, he could have drawn you in.
That's probably true. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I didn't give him enough of a chance, but I wonder though. What I would like to do is come up with kind of a general background of a person and give that to a person and have them give that to every cold reader, and then record them and see what we come back with. If by giving them the same information, if we always get the same cold reading, I think would be interesting.
Come up with a fictional background based on a gestalt of a number of characters.
That's what I want to do. Yeah. So that's kind of my idea of what I'd like to pursue, and maybe we can do that through the IIG. Because I think if you give everybody the same kind of information and tell everybody the same types of things, I'll bet you get the same feedback back from them.
I don't know, because I can imagine that there's a lot of their own bias and their own perspective.
You're probably right. Yeah. Maybe, but that would be interesting to at least try and see what we come up with.
It would be interesting if we could find enough guinea pigs, people, that would be willing to do that.
I don't know. Maybe we can come up with enough money through the IIG to do something like that. That might be an interesting, case study, and we might be able to get it published. We'll make Karen write it up. Not me. Not the natural writer. We don't want the natural writer touching anything. All right.
I don't know. Every time I've tried to get people to do stuff like this, they get very suspicious.
Do they?
Yeah.
Well, who gets suspicious? The people that you're doing it to?
Yeah, like the psychics or the Wiccans or whoever you're trying to study. They automatically get suspicious and the conspiracy theories start and everything. Yeah.
I wonder if we go in and we tell them, listen, we'd like you to do a reading for this person. And tell them that, we're skeptical, but this person really would like to have the reading. Well, of course, I don't know. See, now you're giving too much information. I don't know. We'll discuss it.
Okay.
All right. So let's move on here. And we are definitely at an hour. That took the whole show. Our announcements and that. So, but I'd like to move forward with some of the other stuff we got. How do you guys feel?
Why don't we move it till next week, or not next week, but the next podcast?
Well,
we've got a good that way we've got a good document to start off with.
Oh, well, let's do this. Because you guys, there's some other things in here that I think we can cover.
Okay.
Because Kim's got one in there, and we can talk about the Dr. Oz stuff if you guys want, and then Ian can expose religious fundamentalists in the U.S.
Please, Ian, don't expose yourself.
I was about to say, I'm glad you added that second part.
In the end. Ian's going to expose himself to us. So why don't we move on to Kim's story?
Okay, the brain scan.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I just found this today as a tech article. I thought it was kind of neat. There's apparently a new app for a Nokia phone. And I'm not sure why it only works on that one, but that's what the article says. And basically, it allows you to use an EEG headset and do your own brain scans at home. We looked at the Lizard had a bunch of brain scans in his YouTube presentation we went over, I guess, a few episodes ago. And I'm always interested in, seeing how these things work. But what this is basically doing, what I thought the interesting part is just the movement of technology. We're getting into an age where this kind of stuff, instead of having to go into a lab in a very artificial situation to see how your brain reacts, thinking certain things and stuff, the more this technology is available to your average user, I think it's going to provide some really fascinating things. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of things are used in this. What could come of this? Just a greater data collection, a cheaper, certainly, data collection, and just all that more information in non-laboratory settings. Not rigorous. Go ahead.
Did it say how the brain waves were measured? Like what kind of device they were using to measure it?
It's a headset.
Yeah, an EEG headset.
Yeah, my concern is, if your phone runs out of batteries, does that mean the brain scan shuts off too? And if so, does it take the brain with it?
Well, of course. That would definitely be the danger.
With this kind of stuff.
We've seen this technology up. I have a toy. It's called was it the Jedi?
It's the Jedi thing, yeah.
And it's basically exactly what brainwaves it monitors. I mean, you put it on and it picks up one kind of brainwaves that makes the ball move higher the more you focus in that area of your brain.
Okay, but here's the problem. This kind of stuff makes me nervous, and it seems like it's a fun thing. But how are people going to misuse this? Because most people, do not know the brain well enough to know what this stuff means. Who's going to be doing the interpretation? I mean, I think it's fun, but I think that this can be abused too easily. Not the toy like what Ian's doing, but like this where you actually have the brain scan and it's trying to show, and how accurate could this thing really be? I mean, these EEGs have a lot of probes on your head. How many probes does this have?
Exactly. And not only that, there's people that are PhDs that misinterpret EEG results. How are these people with no training whatsoever in even reading the results? How are they going to make a logical assumption on what it's saying?
Yeah, I don't know. And it scares me that people will.
I think you're going to see, you're going to probably see these at the metaphysical fair in a few years, as they get cheaper. And people can tell you, I see your psychic abilities lighting up the screen right here. Okay. But I don't know. I don't fear this kind of stuff. I think more technology, will there be some abuse? Sure. But I don't see a major drawback to it.
All right.
Well, that's how all this kind of stuff works. People will use everything.
I'm going to give you a major drawback. Gateway to Scientology. Scientologists are going to be using this thing.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and not only that, it being made a mockery of, because there's a lot of times that there are valid, advances made in technology, and it gets in the hands of wrong people, and then it starts becoming a joke.
Right.
That's what I'm
like there's stress meters. There's an actual use for that, but they abuse it.
Yeah, that was from the galvanic skin response. machines, which is a valid psychological tool, but now it's made for something ridiculous, and anytime you bring up, oh, well, this is what it tests, they're like, oh, it's ridiculous, I can go buy that at Spencer's or something.
Right, so, I don't know, but it is cool.
I thought it was Nito Kino.
It is Nito
Not that
Kino.
I'm going to buy the Nokia N900.
No, and that phone's going away anyway. And it has, that's their Linux-based operating system phone, which didn't do so well. But because it is Linux-based, it should be portable over to the Android platform. And it's probably written in, well, if they wrote it in Java. Hopefully it's written in Java. So
or there's a thing called the God helmet that if you spend enough bucks, you can get a pretty accurate EEG machine. But it's supposed to make you experience different spiritual phenomena. So
is that the sub-audio stuff?
No, it's an actual device with magnets that you set on your head. The more money you spend, the more magnets you get, and it's bombarding your brain with EMF. And it's based on Michael Persinger's research that it will make you think you're experiencing God or ghosts or whatever. And if you spend enough money, you can get the software that'll actually measure your brain waves at the same time. And I'm sure it's better than this thing.
Is that the one that are also influencing people to either tell a lie or tell the truth?
No.
Okay.
No, it's, I'm not familiar with that, but I know it's different. This is just
Oh.
That's a lot of theory of where haunted locations come from, is that if there's enough EMF, it makes people fearful or think that there's somebody standing next to them when there's not, stuff like that. They call it the God helmet.
Oh.
Now, if I get something called the God helmet, I want it to give me actual godlike power.
Exactly.
That's the honor.
All right.
Preferably, it should be something tall and squarish and make me look something like Galactus.
Can we talk
You
about
want to
Dr.
be purple?
Oz now?
Talk about what now?
Dr. Oz.
I prefer not to.
Would you prefer not to? Come on, he's a favorite whipping boy.
All right, let's talk about Dr. Oz.
All right. So I don't know. I read through the article. It looks like that they took samples of apple juice and they sent all these samples to a lab that they had tested that they found had high concentrations of arsenic in them. But one of the problems, there's a couple of problems with what they did. One, they sent everything to one lab. Two, they were only looking for total arsenic and not for just the toxic forms of arsenic. And as we know from different, like with, what do I want to say, mercury, there's methyl mercury and ethyl mercury. And ethyl mercury, our body is quite capable of disposing of, and methyl is the one that is toxic to us. So they looked at these and they only reported the levels of total arsenic and not just whether or not they were the harmful versions or one that we could metabolize. And so then they release all this, and so people start to ask these questions. And there's some claims that, well, it said, what was it? Somebody else took and did samples and found that it was much lower. So I guess Dr. Oz is being investigated for this. What did you guys get from this article?
He's being criticized.
I read it on. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say he's definitely being criticized for it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as being investigated,
maybe not. Okay, so he's just being criticized for the study that he proposed, and maybe in the results not being very fair in the end. And he made some definite flaws in the study.
What kind of a doctor is this Dr. Oz?
Dr. Oz, that's a good question. I know that he has patients. He's an MD of some sort.
Oh, is he an MD?
I think so. That's a good question.
For a creative doctor, you can't put too much faith in.
He's got the Oprah seal of approval, so he's got to be good.
Well, if Oprah says so, then yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
Well, now that Oprah isn't around, he probably needs some other way to make his name known. So he's going for something sensationalistic like this.
Well, he's
Kimberly. Kimberly, she's around.
No, that was Misty.
Oh, Misty, she's around.
Person. Yeah.
She has a magazine.
She has a whole channel now.
No. I mean, Oprah made Dr. Oz famous. That's how he got his TV show.
Yes.
And he's been around for a while. He's constantly talking about CAM and alternative treatments and stuff like that. And Dr. Novella was on her show, and I thought he did a pretty good job of taking on the claims that he was making. But of course, he didn't really get to say as much as he would have liked, and he didn't get the last word in. And so it really didn't come off quite as good as it wasn't going to. I mean, because Dr. Oz is going to promote what he's going to promote.
I find it interesting here that he's talking about arsenic in apple juice. The FDA's been testing this for years, and they only test more extensively if there's more than 23 parts per billion of arsenic in the apple juice. And they've tested all the brands that he's had tested, and they haven't found any significant amounts.
Right. So so now we have to question the lab. He only sent things to one lab, so he doesn't have any other ways to verify what he's coming up with. So we've seen this before. Labs will be the lab itself could be infected. And so the readings are not reliable. So maybe that particular lab, for whatever reason, the equipment or something is reading higher levels of arsenic than are actually there.
Well, and in addition, it looks like they also performed, the FDA performed tests on samples of apple juice from the same lot that yielded the highest level of arsenic in Dr. Oz's investigation, and the results ranged from 2 parts per billion to 6 parts per billion.
Which is low.
Now, is he saying, is it extremely high, or is it high in comparison to what's allowed by the FDA?
He's saying it's higher than what the FDA allows, I think. But it's the way that he's reporting it. He's reporting total arsenic, which is what they do on the first pass. When they test the apple juice, they do an initial test for total arsenic. If it is higher than 23 parts per million, that's the number, then they'll do a test for the different types of arsenic to make sure that it's not a poisonous type of arsenic. But it has to reach a certain level of total arsenic before it's even a problem. Apples are going to have arsenic in them. There's just no way around it.
Our drinking water has a ton of arsenic in it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a problem if you're in Globeville, right? I mean, because there was a toxic release there, but the rest of us, not so much.
Well, yep. But here's the problem.
Okay.
That 2 to 6 parts per billion in there is actually far more lethal than the 23 parts per billion. Homeopathically speaking.
Oh, well, that is an excellent point. And that stuff is getting shook up all the time. So it's probably getting more and more potent. And then probably the concentration and then rehydration of apple juice probably makes it even more potent.
No, but wait a minute. Doesn't the homeopathy work the other way? So the arsenic actually is going to energize the kids and make them live longer.
If there's if the portions are large.
That's right. Yeah. The apple juice arsenic is going to make them immune to other arsenic.
It's going to counteract it.
Yeah, isn't that how homeopathy works? You put the stuff in that causes it, and that'll cause the opposite effect?
It depends on who's making it up that week.
Oh, well, okay.
All right, Ian. Last one. Let's expose yourself.
Oh, well, I expose myself every podcast. Just you guys aren't lucky enough to see it.
That's right. Podcasting nude from his basement.
Okay, exposing religious fundamentalism in the U.S. I think we've all seen this trend, and with the recent GOP debates going on, it seems to be popping up quite a bit. But this article talks about what we're seeing. And actually, you read through it, it's also talking about a lot of stuff we've covered here on the podcast in the past. Like the rewriting of history that was going on in Texas for the textbooks and stuff. A lot of the, censorships that we've talked about and stuff like that. This actually goes into that being part of a bigger pattern to kind of try and control society to an extreme. And so reading through this, even trying to be open-minded and, say, okay, how much is conspiracy theorist and how much, actually has some stuff backing it. We've talked about so much stuff in the podcast in the past that felt like this fit right together with what this was going with, which, I try not to be a conspiracy theorist. I really try and stay away with some of this stuff. So going into this article, it does feel like a fair amount of conspiracy theorists. But at the same time, we've seen some of these patterns happening, and I think there is a body in the U.S. trying to cause some of this to happen. And this goes through, wars and such. It's a long article. It's a really good-sized article, but it has a lot of good knowledge in it. And I don't know who has read the whole thing.
It seemed to talk a lot about dominionism, right?
Right.
Yes.
Which is Rick Perry is associated with them, and they believe that Jesus can't come back until the Christians take over the government.
Yeah, there was a Point of Inquiry podcast about that. It's very interesting. They have what is it called? Demon deliverance centers, supposedly in every state. We should go find one.
We should. That is something we should do. Yeah.
But it's very political. It goes off on the Tea Party and stuff. But like I said, it gives you an idea of what some of the stuff they seem to be promoting has led to in the past. It talks about the religious wars and how deadly they are and how crazy it is and how Europe for the longest time just was nonstop religious wars because of the mentality that some of these people are trying to promote. And, it's kind of scary that, they want to take us back to that level.
I think we need a grassroots organization to register all the atheists in the country. And then we need to make it so that only atheists can vote for political office. Because, separation of church and state.
What's scary about them especially is that they don't believe in just one political ideology. They try to have candidates in their pocket from both sides.
Right.
All the time.
Yeah. They want to win either way.
Yeah. They're trying to advance an agenda, definitely.
Well, so are we.
Yep.
All right. So, we have Misty with us tonight, and we're going to put her on the spot because Misty has a podcast coming out called The Curious Skeptic. And so, Misty, why don't you tell us a little bit about the podcast and when we're finally going to be able to hear this gem?
Well, it's going to be a magnificent piece of work, so it's going to take a while. But you can't rush genius.
It's not going to be thrown together a piece of crap like our podcast.
Hey, don't say that.
Hey, don't insult both our listeners.
No, it's I'm very curious, but I'm also I actually can truly say that I try to be scientific. I do have a degree in psychology, and one day we'll have a PhD, hopefully. So the purpose of my podcast will be to look at all these different things that I find myself being curious about, and then getting my interpretation through the eyes of psychology, hopefully, and whatever else I can drum up. And I'm not going to try to be insultive. I don't want to be insultive to people's beliefs, but I will try to put a rational lens on it. So that's going to be the main idea of it. So it'll be a lot of what you guys look at, like the metaphysical fairs and healings and things like that. But I want to find the real reason of why it happens the way it does. Why does it work on people? Why is it still around? Things like that.
So you're going to be more objective and not just a bunch of hacks.
Yeah, no, it's not being hacked. I just don't want to discount people's beliefs, because people's beliefs are valid to a certain extent for their own experience. But I want to try to make sense of it for everyone involved, hopefully. And every once in a while, it would be mostly just myself, but every once in a while, my best friend Sarah, she is also a believer, I guess you could say, and she will be giving that perspective, in contrast to my saying everything is a bunch of crap.
You know what? I'm going to say, because I've actually listened to it, I'm going to say that she may be a believer, but she's still pretty rational.
She is, and I think that's why her and I get along.
Yeah.
So she can say that she will accept the possibility of these things, and some of the things she holds on to, regardless of what science says, but she still tries to be rational and logical about it.
Yeah, she wasn't, like a loony believer. She wasn't a woo merchant, if you will.
No, she's not.
No.
There are some things that no matter how much I speak to her about them, she's like, no, I'm not going to listen. I think it works. And she has her experience with them. So, but you know what? I got to give people that if they try something and they weigh the evidence and they still think that it works for them, well, who am I to say that it doesn't?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll be looking forward to you publishing that podcast.
Eventually, yes.
Eventually. Come on, you just got to jump in and do it.
No, I'm waiting on the music right now. That's all I'm waiting on. My music director is being slow, so hopefully, eventually, maybe about a week.
Go find something from George Robb.
Okay.
He'll let you use it. No problem. He'll let you use it. I'll bet you.
Okay.
Go buy the album and say, hey, I want to use this for my podcast. Can I?
Who is George Robb?
George Robb? Robb? You don't know who Robb is? Oh,
no.
Man. Go check out the Geologic podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a friend of yours?
No. Well.
Oh.
Well, no, I'm sure if we met, I'd say vibraphone and we'd be, all, shaking hands and I can't, he's everybody's friend, right, Kim?
I guess so. Although I heard you didn't have a very good relationship with men, so I don't know if that'll work for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
Was
to...
that one of the guys at Skeptic Camp in Colorado Springs?
No. He lives, in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he has a band called the
Not the
Philly Funk
Jesus.
Authority, and then he has the Geologic Orchestra, and he has the Geologic podcast, and it's Geo's Logic. it's funny. He's a songwriter. He's a comedian.
He's a funny guy.
He hosted TAM this year. There's a lot of good stuff from that. Funny guy.
Cool.
And his songs are all skeptical, and I imagine that if you found one that inspired you, that you could ask him about.
Okay, I'll have to do that because I can't wait for creativity.
Or I will find something for you.
Okay, you're like, I'll just do it.
Come on, it was good. It was a good listen. It was far more studious than my podcast.
Oh, don't say that.
Yeah, go ahead, say that.
Well, I try.
That's why Eric is here, because, whenever we need biology stuff, we call upon him for his expertise, and we'll be calling upon yours expertise as well.
Hey, we openly admit we don't know what the hell we're talking about.
No, yeah. Anyway, so thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. I had fun.
And to our other brain, Eric, thank you for joining us.
What now?
And to the rest of the cells, thank you for being with me.
Yay.
No problem.
Nice.
That was perfect. That was excellent. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast. For more information about the Amateur Skeptics, go to amateurskeptics.com. To send us feedback, suggestions, or big flaming insults, feel free to contact us at WTF@amateurskeptics.com. Other contact information can be found on our website.
You can leave a voicemail for the Amateur Skeptics podcast at 720-295-7785. Music for this podcast was provided by OFM. To find out more about OFM, go to myspace.com/OFMHQ. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons, No Derivatives 3.5 license. Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast.
Amateur Skeptics website, Facebook, and podcast album art is provided by and copyright Shadow Knight Digital Portraiture. Larger prints or custom pieces are available upon request.